Riveting content. Empowering your life. Welcome to The Sphere. This episode is sponsored by
Sphere Exclusives. Looking for exclusive content from your favorite podcasts here at The Sphere? Head over to sphere.tv/Patreon and sign up today. True Digital Media Consulting. You're online right now and so are your customers, but marketing has to be a consistent journey. True Digital Media Consulting can help with your online ads, organic growth, and so much more. Contact us today at 832-934-4436 or visit our website at truedigitalmediaconsulting.com. Lady Ari Natural Hair Care. Lady Ari Natural Hair Care has been a prime destination for catering to naturally kinky hair in Houston, Texas. Give the experts a call today at area code 832-265-3792 or book online at ladyari.com.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Society Now, a show that endeavors to bring you riveting content that is ensured to incite, and inspire great conversation between you and your family, your friends, your coworkers, those at the water cooler, those in the locker room. So we hope that we are able to give you some really good dialogue and content today. We have a great show planned. We have our great co-host on my far right and our lovely guest. Well, let's get into my co-host over here.
Hey, what's going on? It's your man, Kalen Laws, a.k.a. Senor Wapo. Do me a quick favor. Go to Instagram, go to Twitter, go to Facebook, and follow your boy. Sígame at Senor Wapo 713. That's SENORGUAPO 713. Holla at your boy. You're tuned in to Society Now.
We are tuned in. So, I mean, we've had, I can say that 2019 has started. It's better than 2018. 2018 was
it's been a little litty.
Yeah, 2018 was kind of rough. It was making me question what we should expect in 2019. So 2019 came, and I was like, okay.
It's been some flames.
It been some flames, and I was like, okay. I feel like we prepared ourselves for it in 18 because our mind had to be adjusted for some things.
No, facts.
But we also needed to prepare ourselves holistically, right? We needed to think about some things that we wanted to get right before we actually stepped into this new season. So with that being said, I wanted to introduce our guest today. So we have today. You want to tell them who you are?
Of course. Absolutely, I will. Hello, everybody. My name is LaShanna Leonard Moore.
All right, LaShanna Leonard Moore.
LLM.
Not from the legal perspective, y'all. That is,
right.
She is, well, she's given the law, but she's laying down the law, but not from the law of the land type of thing, but it's right from a whole nother perspective.
Not from jurisprudence.
Yes,
not from jurisprudence.
Yes, this is true.
It's a different type of law.
Facts.
Now, tell us everything that we need to know about you. Tell us who you are, your background,
Absolutely.
all these letters behind in front of your name, all of that. Tell us
XYZABC.
Right.
Well, first of all, thank you, Laws, for having me here. I'm excited to join you guys. Dope couple. So, yes, my name is LaShanna Leonard Moore. By profession, I am a nutrition specialist and a holistic health practitioner.
Okay.
In a nutshell, what both of those spectrums cover is making sure that we're living a full life of wellness.
Okay.
So, wellness has 5 cycles, 5 different stages. It's physical wellness, it's mental, emotional wellness, it's spiritual wellness, it's social wellness, and it's intellectual wellness.
Oh, this is going to be so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
5 cycles of wellness.
Yes, sir.
Physical, spiritual, emotional, intellectual, social, and
mental and emotional are together.
Okay, that's together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social.
That's what I forgot. Social.
And intellectual.
And intellectual, because it's
Love
important.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so why are they separated, and why are they so important to be categorized like that?
Good question. They're separated so that we can understand how each functions on its own.
Okay.
But then they're all intertwined
correlated.
because they overlap. One cannot do without the other.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
once you really break it down, and we see all of the different dynamics of our life, how we move, how we breathe, how we think, our behavior, our thought life, and all of those different things, our spiritual convictions and persuasions, all of those things pair together to give us a well life. And wellness just simply means the total state of you.
Okay.
Your complete state of well-being.
So how did you enter into this field of study?
Oh,
What
loaded
was
question.
What was the genesis?
Come on now. Come on.
What was the genesis?
But we're going to compress it. You know, so I'm probably literally that example of pain into purpose.
Okay.
My first degree is performing arts, dance and theater.
All right.
So I did
You a
not endeavor to.
thespian.
I was a thespian.
Okay.
I love it.
So I literally was not pursuing anything that I'm doing right now. All of it came as a personal testament. As a dancer, I was preparing for, I'll make this really quick, I was preparing for a Canadian tour, so I hired a personal trainer just to really get my body in optimum shape. Long story short, the guy was not certified, just had natural genes. He was misfacilitated a move and resulted in me rupturing my Achilles tendon.
Oh, no.
So, of course, that booted me out of the tour. Just a whole, when I tell you a whole life change, a completely life change.
I totally get
Completely.
it. Totally get it.
So from surgery to rehab and physical therapy, I had to rely on nutrition because I could not work out.
Oh, wow.
So that's how nutrition, muscle atrophy from
Absolutely.
the glute all the way to the calf. A friend of mine at the time saw how I was progressing and how well I was doing with nutrition, how I was coming along with physical therapy, and just encouraged me to go into fitness. So that's where the personal training aspect came in. I moved to LA, fast forward in 2016 to open up another nutrition office, and that's when I got into wellness. So I had a I grew up with eczema. My body had a really bad reaction to the climate in LA, the lead,
And the smog
in
and
the
all.
water,
Oh.
even with filters on everything at the house. I mean, I looked like I was
hard
burned.
water. Gosh.
So that's when I got into the wellness
Okay.
and the holistic health
Wow.
aspect. And then the next summer, I was diagnosed with fibroids and PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. That got me all the way into holistic health.
Come on now.
So every phase by God's design, y'all know how He is, has
The master
literally
architect.
walked me into the second phase of this career path that He chose.
Well, it's so interesting you say that. So I tell people all the time that a lot of my eating habits, a lot of my lifestyle was because of just, being very aware of some of the
Yeah.
things that, you deal with from a generational perspective. I
Right.
think about, like, on one side of my family, there was issues with heart disease and things like that. On the other side of the family, there was
Yeah.
issues with diabetes, and I didn't want to fall in any of those things. So I'm very young. I kind of adjusted made a lifestyle change with food, with exercise, and things like that. And like you, some years ago, I was diagnosed with fibroids,
Wow.
and so, and of course, apparently they had been there. That's not something you just
You don't know.
You
Right.
just don't know.
Exactly.
But gratefully, it had not created some of the issues that it could have created.
Right.
That's good.
So that was a blessing. But it's what we really want to know is, especially we can kind of talk about this, but
Yeah.
as we get a little further in conversation, how do we manage some of these issues that we're dealing with? You mentioned eczema. I know you had a history with eczema and all these different things with wellness, nutrition, things like that.
Absolutely.
And I can identify, and I can identify as well with the injury portion. So, and I was a track and field athlete in college.
Okay.
Headed toward the pros.
Wow.
And had a partial 3-place thickness tear in my hamstring. Done.
Yeah,
done.
man.
And so, hamstrings are tricky. You're from a fitness background, so hamstrings that's the trickiest outside of your lumbars and your back. That's one of the trickiest muscle groups.
So many areas are connected and
so many
intertwined.
connections, so much flexion and tension that hits the body in that area. So I get it, and I went through a slick depression for a second because
I'm sure
my
it's tricky.
Everything that I was doing, I was an honor student in college, and the grades were great, but still my identity was wrapped up into what I was doing on the track. Right. And so when we talk about looking at from a holistic perspective, talk to us let's kind of dig into that mental part first.
Okay.
Right. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. Right.
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at a holistic approach to mental health, what does that entail? Like a high level. I know you can't give us the everything, but kind of a high level. What does that entail?
Absolutely. Well, there are questions that it leads us to ask ourselves.
Okay.
All of these spectrums there are questions that we ask ourselves, and so with mental and emotional, because they are intertwined, we ask ourselves, how am I thinking? How am I feeling? Because from that platform right there, it's going to awaken everything else. Once we really get to a place to where we're consciously just stopping to pay attention to what we're meditating on, what we're thinking about. That's the battlefield right there. Sure. We know that the mind is, and so because too mentally and scientifically, our neurotransmitters are going to transfer messages to certain parts of the body based on what we've convinced ourselves of, in the mind. That's the first thing that we have to do.
Battlefield of the mind.
Battlefield of the mind.
Right.
Joyce Myers. We have to think about, we have to take some time to consider what our thought life is like.
Right. No, I mean, that's so critical.
Yes, it is.
In the development of absolutely.
We underestimate
so I read somewhere that Einstein, who's considered one of the most, like, he's the standard in terms of geniuses, right? Yeah. They said that he utilized, and even science has backed this up, that they utilize anywhere from 8 to 12% of our brains. Our brain, but
very small portion.
But very small portion. But the electrical output that it can withstand is so powerful that our bodies wouldn't be able to contain it. It would fry us, which is why it takes 100,000 volts in electroshock therapy to kill somebody.
Amazing? Because
our brain can withstand almost up to 100,000 volts. So amazing. You understand what I'm saying? So if we can take that, and if we look at if we look
That's
at exactly how we are actually created to think versus what we do now.
Like, we were created to literally create.
Absolutely.
Just
we're created by the
thoughts.
creator.
Jeez.
You know what I'm saying? And so, like, that mental part is critical. So I love that perspective.
Yeah.
In terms of so tell us what I'm really interested in, because I'm a social butterfly. Give us this social. I really am. Talk to us about this social wellness. What does that even mean?
Yeah. So social wellness is all about, of course, our surroundings, by choice or by circumstance. What we choose to do with our social environment, the health of what that looks like, from the people to geographical location, topography. All of those things really bear a major influence on our overall health. So it forces us to think about, who am I entertaining? What kind of conversation am I entertaining? What kind of brain support am I surrounded by? Just that alone, because we were talking about this on my podcast the other day, about how we are receptors and incubators, because there's so much that can be transferred
Absolutely.
from one person to another. And so the health of our social wellness is very critical, because we tend to put stock and trust and belief and faith in what we've chosen to surround ourselves with, unless we are allowing ourselves to be victim to maybe passivity and not speaking out and doing what's necessary to realign ourselves, in a healthier environment. And then if it's environmental, if the social wellness is environmental, then we have to ask ourselves, what can I do to make the environment healthier and more conducive for me to live?
Absolutely.
And you're really, like, innately, my wife is really, really good at that. And it used to drive me.
I'm very introspective.
It's very introspective, but she's very much aware of how people's energy affects her.
Oh yeah.
And everybody has a different threshold, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, like I said, I'm a social butterfly. I can be in 7 circles, and for the most part, it doesn't really affect me.
So
draining.
Yeah, I said for the most part. As I've gotten older, it's changed. But especially when I was younger, it just didn't drain me because I fed off of the energy and the connection.
You're extrovert.
I'm very extroverted.
See, I'm an introvert. See, I'm an extrovert by obligation or by necessity.
Right.
I'm an extrovert by Jesus just gave it to me.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
have
saying?
it naturally.
Yeah, naturally. And so when we would get together and Kira would take her time, I'm like, yo, let's go do this, let's go that, let's go shit. That's too much for me right now. I need to breathe. I need to be with me. And I'm like, what you mean? What you need? You all the time. What's going on? You know. And so I didn't really understand it from an experiential point of view until we got together. And it was something that was actually exclusive to us because I'd never. I don't think I ever cared.
Wow.
Prior to if I was dating someone before,
probably
if that was dating, probably didn't pay attention. But it was really exclusive to us.
Yeah.
But what is also exclusive to you is who's sponsoring this portion of the show, and that is the Sphere exclusive team. Are you looking for content that you can't find anywhere else? Well, look no further than our Sphere exclusives found only on Patreon. We've got behind the scenes shot happening daily at the Sphere Podcast Studios. Now, each show on the podcast network curates episodes that are only delivered to Patreon subscribers. Plus, we deliver the show live from start to finish in our Discord server that's exclusive to our Patreon family. Sign up today at www.thesphere.tv/Patreon to join our $2, $5, or $8 Patreon tier and get access to all the exclusive content we offer at the Sphere. Sign up!
Do it.
Do it. So we are talking with LaShanna Leonard Moore from LLM, talking about this here holistic care. So we just talked about social. We talked about mental and emotional. What's another? I'm forgetting them that fast. The 5. What were the
Physical.
5? Physical. I don't want to do that one yet.
Okay.
Intellectual.
Okay. So spiritual. Well, I mean, let's talk about it. I think a lot of times people, although I don't think they are together, people want to cross those lines, right? They get intellectual about their spirituality, and they sometimes they get too spiritual about how into, I mean, and it is a word, right? Because sometimes we can be you be so spiritual, earthly good, and vice versa,
right? Vice versa,
and so I think there is a balance to it, and I think they can and obviously do coexist.
Yeah.
So tell us more about how they benefit of understanding how they function.
Right.
The intellectual and the spiritual?
Yeah.
Well, to break them down in definition, intellectual wellness is, it's twofold. It's number one, what am I doing to enhance myself intellectually? And then what am I doing to enhance my surrounding, my community?
Okay.
Spiritual wellness definitely is our center. It's what we choose to go to, or what we choose to inhabit as our grounding, our center, our devotion, our commitment.
Right.
For everyone, that's going to look differently. For me, it's Jesus Christ, God the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so, like you were saying, sometimes we can kind of go too deep off into one threshold that either the other is lacking, or they may clash, or sometimes contradict themselves. So if I were to say how those two work together, I would say based on what your spiritual conviction is, the principles and the values of your spiritual wellness are really going to determine what am I going to do to keep me constantly elevated and learning and enriching in my life, and what am I going to do to make sure that I am contributing to my society or my community, that my life is not just about me, mine, and my needs and wants, but I'm literally being a resource to the world.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And I think, like, when we think about that, when we talk about the 5 cycles? The 5 cycles, and how we are to operate in this world we live in, how we are supposed to function. There is a need to, I guess, to be able to quickly identify where there is deficits, right? And quickly identify where we need to actually work to improve areas. And then also, how do we, like you said, I think all of these, when you think about all of these cycles, they all affect the community around us. They all affect not just us. Of course, it might seem to be more present you know, or we see it more in us, but we actually, how do we interact with other people as we're going through these cycles of life? And so I think it's really cool. I really want to know, I mean, so we talked about this, and we think about, this is a question I think my husband was asking. Well, he wasn't asking. We were talking about it. Holistic. Yeah. I have always wanted to know, why is it not spelled with a W and H? No, I'm just not. I'm being funny. But no, I think
H-O-L.
Holistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
yes.
Seriously.
That's a really good question. I
being
think
funny,
like that too, though. Like, okay. So
it's about being whole.
Right.
It's all about whole. It's definitely it's from a Greek word.
Okay.
Holissimo, and so that's where the term holistic deviates from.
Okay.
So now we've brought holistic care, holistic health into Western civilization.
Got it.
But by definition, holistic health is about, when you define it, it says treating the whole person.
With a W.
So it does go back to the W. Yep.
So we all know it's just a function of language differences. It's not necessarily, not because it means something totally different. It's just the root, the origin of the word. It's the origin of the word.
Right.
So I feel like in our society right now, we have seen, or we're seeing like in news and conversation, how people in their cycles, playing out these cycles. So we see it in news all the time. We can talk about from our politics. We could talk about our federal government, some things that are happening. We could talk about in social media. We can actually, if we would sit down, if we would take a day and just sit down and watch some of the the hot topics that are going on, we probably could identify areas where people might be experiencing some deficits or places they need to improve, and there's not balance.
Yeah, and I just looked up holismo, right? The belief that the whole is greater than the sum parts.
There you go.
Come on.
I love it. I just learned something. I'm gonna use it now.
In my husband's mind, the way it works, that he never forgets anything. He knows things verbatim, and he like one of the people that read a book and will remember.
You got a photographic memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Especially for nerd stuff like words.
Yeah,
I love words. I have a love affair with words. So.
Wordologist.
Yeah, no, for sure. So when you start talking about what's going on in and around our community, in and around our family, in and around our friends, what we're looking at. Let me talk to some friends real quick.
Absolutely.
Before we dive into that, and that's our Facebook Live friends and family.
All right, Facebook Live friends.
In, but you've got to subscribe to get to the rest of the show. So guess what? Subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe to our show on all the major platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and anywhere else podcasts are found. Review our show across all platforms and help us to build better content for you, and share the entire show with your family and friends right from the Sphere Podcast Network Facebook page. And last but not least, support. Again, I say support. One more time for the Holy Ghost. Support our mission to bring enriched and inspiring content each and every week. You can donate using a one-time donation at www.thesphere.tv/donate, or get exclusive content almost daily via our Patreon tiers. Sign up at www.thesphere.tv/Patreon. And guess what? We need your coin. We need your coin.
Hello.
No, but listen, go ahead and connect with us and make sure you hit subscribe. We'll see you all very, very soon. So we start talking about, before we dig into with his family once more, or talking about everything that's going on in the news, especially as it relates to holistic care, let's dig into my favorite part of it, the physical.
Okay.
The physical side. So I have a personal training athletic background, as I just told you.
Come on, bro.
Outside of school, I was at the last few years of college, as well as afterwards. After competing, I became a personal trainer and worked through Bally for a number of years before they went under.
Yeah.
Loved it. But I did not realize how difficult it was for folks who didn't have that mindset. And what I mean is, I came from a competitive background. I've been an athlete my whole
your
life.
mental discipline was different.
I've been an athlete my whole life. That was going to work out was my stress relief. Putting my body under stress, physical stress, was my mental stress relief.
Yeah.
So when I would get these clients, and I would get folks who were wanting, giving out free workouts to give them a little teaser, or somebody would sign up for X amount of packages, that I just didn't understand why they weren't motivated, especially when they were giving me their money. I just didn't get it. So I think that was my first time that I really understood outside of an athletic context how interconnected is what you're talking about, right? How interconnected the physical and the mental was. I knew it from a competitive standpoint because, you got to focus and you got to center yourself and you got to go off and you got to get into your routine when you're warming up and all of these kinds of listen to whatever music you want to listen to. You know how we are, But it was only in that framework. I didn't see it outside of that framework. And so when I saw it outside of that framework, I was like, yo, okay. Right. Everybody's not like this. I was 22 years old. I didn't know what I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, really, everybody is not like this. They don't connect the dots like that. And so listening to you talk, holistic care is connecting all of those dots. Yes. Those 5 points of that star, if you will.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. I tell you, that's really, really great. That's fantastic.
And you know what I will share with people when I give these talks about the 5 cycles of wellness, I will tell I'll have everyone break them down and then have everyone to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 5 in each area. 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. You want to try to stay within the grade of 3 to 5 just to make sure that you are living a well life. But then after they've graded themselves, I switch the order in terms of importance. And physical wellness is actually the last cycle. Right. Because, and you know this, if cycles 1 through 4 are in alignment, you're going to do 5.
You're going to do 5.
You're going to do 5. So that just goes back to what you just said. And if they're
out of alignment, 5 is going to suck.
Yes.
You're going to get hurt.
Right.
Something is going to falter physically, which is a manifestation of what's going on in the other 4.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been there.
Yeah.
Been there.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with this thing called
it.
stress. It manifests itself in so many different emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical ways.
Yes, sir.
And so I am a fan of holistic care. So
let
me. I didn't know I was because I didn't really know what it was until today. But now that I know what it is, I am a fan of it. So let me ask you. Let me kind of put you on the spot.
Okay.
Real quick. What are some things that we can do? I don't know if no. Let's back up. So what is your take on supplements or external things? Whether it be vitamins, minerals, etc. What's your take on that from a holistic standpoint?
Well, supplementation is already a controversial issue. In the natural context of supplementation, I do believe that they should be a part of our life, but for every person that's going to look different. Right. Which means that we've got to know what our life demand levels are. We've got to know what supplementations are needed for us, which means we've got to know in what areas of life we are falling deficient in, what those deficient areas are. We have to be careful not to go into this whole trend culture of supplementation or immediate gratification, instant gratification when it comes to supplementation, but really take the time to learn what we need, what you need as an individual.
Right.
And then once you learn what that is, then you're able to say, okay, I can get this deficiency through food, so that's the nutrition component, and then understand that my body may not have the absorption level that it should have through food, so then I'm going to result in getting a supplementation for this. You and I were just talking about fibroids a few moments ago, and particularly for African American women, we are deficient in vitamin D. So there's a prime example of when supplementation can be advantageous for usage.
So interesting. So did you find that, or have you circled back around and seen any results from things that you from the diagnosis that you had to now?
Yes.
What have you done? Tell me more. Let me know the secret to life, because I need to know.
I know, right? The gateway.
Let me know the gateway, because what is the gateway of healing? Because sister needs to know, honey.
Draw close, everybody. Yes, it is. Drum roll.
What is it? Because we don't. They don't talk enough about it, and I feel like what I've learned. Even I have one. I tell people I have the best doctor. She is amazing. She's amazing. She loves me like I'm her own child. She loves my kids because she delivered them. But she's limited on what she knows, because this is her area. Her area is making sure I'm well enough. I bear these babies.
Right.
I come out okay.
Right.
They come out okay. But there's still some things that she's just not a specialist in.
Exactly.
And so I want to know.
Okay.
What is it? So we can start spreading the news. Because we need to help. I mean, because it's more prevalent in African American women.
Absolutely.
And I mean, we can talk about that. That's a whole other thing. Why is that the case?
Yes.
But what is the good? Tell me the good.
That's loaded. It's loaded. So again, if we're focusing on women of color, there are a lot of factors that we have to take into consideration. My suggestion is that you need a great relationship with a conventional doctor, one that you trust, one that's not just prescription oriented, but wants to see you well.
Absolutely.
And then having a relationship with a naturopath or a holistic health practitioner like myself, because you are going to get the best of both worlds. If you've got a doctor that you can trust, and I'm constantly formulating good relationships with doctors, because women need to have somebody that they can be referred to, that they can trust, that's concerned about them and their health.
Absolutely.
Their scope of practice is about treating the symptoms.
Yes.
Treating the symptoms. That's what they're trained to do.
Yeah.
Whereas we're going to look into the core of what's going on. So your visit with someone like me may be completely different. We're going to ask you questions that you probably feel like don't have any relevance to what you're feeling. But number one of the things that we deal with a lot with these issues is estrogen dominance. That's why you'll see with African American women, we are prevalent with breast cancer and ovarian cancer.
Wow.
Our estrogen levels are out of control.
Oh, wow.
And then we have more, and I'll condense this, we have more than one type of estrogen. We have 4. So there's one sister girl, one estrogen who's always out of control. And she's like a building block, like Lego blocks. She's constantly changing, transitioning, morphing, and shifting, because in her defense for the system, she's fighting the system. And so what that does is it causes an overgrowth in various dysfunctions like ovarian cysts. Here comes fibroids, and they continue to grow. Our estrogen and our progesterone levels are often imbalanced, which is going to be a domino effect for so many different things. So when we talk about, number one, having to get the system in alignment, get the system in balance, we have to find out with each woman, and I'm giving the generality of it, we have to find out what's going on in that woman's body. Sometimes it is genetic. Sometimes it's hormonal. Sometimes it is environment. Here's something that we underestimate, and that's stress.
Well, the first thing I told my husband, I said, this is all stress. But stress can also be generational.
Yes, ma'am.
Because some people in their families carry stress.
And that compounds just the whole essence of stress.
Absolutely.
It really is. So stress, estrogen dominance, low progesterone, these are some areas. Deficiencies in vitamin D, deficiency in magnesium, environmental. For years, based on what we're working with, what our environment is like, what we're dealing with, if we're exposed to a lot of lead, a lot of fluoride. For years upon years, all we knew sanitary-wise were the tampons and the sanitary napkins that were on the shelf. Well, in the last 5 to 7 years now, we've discovered that they're layered with pesticides and chemicals and synthetics and all those different things. So learning all of these different things, again, in a general sense, can really help the woman start to alleviate the issues, the symptoms, because we're targeting the core issues, and those are many of the core issues that a black woman is dealing with.
Wow, that's so good,
and women of color.
I mean, women of color. I mean, because truly, and I just thought it's so interesting how I feel like a lot of the hardships that we see in our society falls on people of color, and I often wonder why that is.
Yeah,
I mean, we definitely have. we definitely have like great skin.
Yeah. Right.
we carry the great skin genes. We got some blessings. Strength is not nothing to bemoan. It actually is a blessing that we have been able to endure,
right,
and to deal with certain things. We are very smart as a culture.
Right.
We are very creative as a culture. We're very forward as a culture, but we also deal with a lot more. And I think medical science has not caught up to even the advance, like you said, having a holistic doctor, holistic path, someone you can talk to,
right,
because there are things like I told my husband, I said some of the I know when I'm off, because I was like I'm always self-assessing.
Yes.
I'm always aware,
yes,
and I'm like, okay, well, I need to de-stress. I need to be able to check this. I know I don't need, early on, I don't need to eat these things. I don't eat that thing, whatever. And then also being able to have the conversation. It was some things I didn't find out about.
Most definitely that
part. My health history, you know what I mean, about things my mom dealt with, things that,
and they
for
were
whatever,
so quiet about it.
It was so quiet about it. I'm like, why are you so quiet? You didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
So now I'm dealing with something that might have been.
Well, generationally, we deal with shame.
There's shame and stigma.
It's shame
Absolutely.
and
We
stigma.
deal with shame
And it's unfortunate. That's a whole nother conversation. How do we get out of the
Right.
rut? It's on us now because now
Right.
we're raising the next generation. But
Yes.
how do we get out the rut of passing along shame? How hard is it to have a conversation about something that you weren't necessarily the reason why it's happening to you? I wonder why we feel like that shame bug is so heavy on us.
It is.
And then we have to go see doctors. We have to
Right.
see counselors. But we don't even do that sometimes because of the shame. We
Right.
don't want to talk about it.
Well,
stigma.
remember, Paul reminded us that there's now therefore no condemnation. Well, that's what shame is, right?
Yeah.
Shame is just a tactic of the enemy to get us to be to be a cancer unto ourselves.
Wow.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
good. That's
and
good.
that's really what it is. We know that his battlefield, if I can go here for a minute, those of you who are listening and watching.
Come on now,
His
battlefield.
battlefield is the mind. He does nothing but deposit seeds of discord and doubt within our minds so that we can not realize that we are, as Psalm says, like the gods,
Yeah.
right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that we have the power of the Creator, the power
Yeah.
of Yah, as Psalm
Right.
says. He said, in his name is Yah. And so we, once those seeds of doubt gets in there via shame, then everything like we talked about earlier, that mental and emotional piece is so strong because after that one goes, it's easy for everything else to falter.
That's right.
It's easy for everything
Right.
else to falter, and so I'm having a phenomenal time having
this
this whole.
is
I said, listen, I didn't know what a holistic care and wellness was before today, but I know I love it now.
Listen, it's important to know. It's important to know, and it's important to actually be able to, spend time like sharing information or whatever, and creating your platform and whatever. And with that thought in mind, this portion of our show is sponsored by True Digital. You're online right now, and so are your customers. The question is how do you get to actively reach them? Marketing has to be a consistent journey, and we're here to walk you with you every step of the way. True Digital Media Consulting can help with website development, online ads, your business reputation, and organic growth on search engines. Give us a call today to discuss a customized strategy for your business at 832-934-4436, or send us an email to info@truedigitalmediaconsulting.com. Mention the Sphere to receive a free 30-minute strategy consultation. Again, the number is 832-934-4436, or email us at info@truedigitalmediaconsulting.com. Yeah. Hey, share the love.
Share the love.
Share it.
Share it. So,
Mention the Sphere.
huh?
Yeah.
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 What?
What?
Who did it?
I love it.
So I think the conversation is really rich. It's really good. For me personally, you don't know how many times people be like, oh, I got this. We connected with some holistic and wellness persons online, and they're like, they were always having like, okay, well, you need to, if you're dealing with this, you need to take this particular supplement. If you're dealing with this, you need to take this one. I'm like, well, what if you have this issue? No one would ever answer about fibroids. Never. And these are people of color. No one would ever answer about fibroids. I'm like, just say I'm not sure. I'm still looking into that. Or I haven't researched that yet.
Right.
Because
right.
this because it's not a situation where there's, like I said, there's too many people that are affected by it.
Right.
Especially women of color.
Especially women of color. So
Black
I mean,
women
definitely.
specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know we
Yes,
was
sir.
gonna go there, but I'm so glad we did.
Yeah.
Listen.
So what do we do now?
Well, now we you talk about these external factors, right?
Yeah.
And so many things, so many things happen in our day-to-day lives that affect us emotionally, spiritually. That can
How do
become.
we de-stress though?
How do we de-stress? I know for me, I have to work out, do something physical. I'm a
That's
typical
your
athlete.
thing.
But what do you do when you can't work out? How do you de-stress? How do you what would you recommend to someone to de-stress, to kind of get yourself together so you can get your cycles on track, or whatever that looks like? How do you get stuff on track?
I think one of the things that we have to start being aware of is recognizing our stress triggers. And
Yeah,
for
that's key.
many of us, we don't even recognize we're stressed out. It's always something that you look back at in hindsight or in retrospect, and then it dawns on you like this epiphany, like, man, I was dealing with all of that, or I was going through that. So taking the time to identify what our stress triggers are, so that when we get to that point, we can call a timeout, flag on the play for ourselves. I think de-stressing starts from that mental wellness component first. Taking the time to I talk about knowing the difference between rest and sleep. So sleep is great. We need it. But sometimes we just need to rest. We need to unplug. We need to get quiet, which is practice. We need to start learning how to settle down the mind.
Right.
If you settle the mind down, then the heart is going to settle down. And then inadvertently, the body is going to settle down. So de-stressing from the mind first. Some holistic or homeopathic things that I would suggest would be what you listen to. That can be from a podcast to soundscapes to, different relaxation techniques. Then to aromatherapy and herbology. That's your diffusers with the essential oils. Essential oils are very powerful because our senses are gateways to our feeling and our thinking.
Right.
Those are two. Of course, the pop culture is really into yoga and stretching and things like that. That's going to trickle down now into the physical aspect of de-stressing. But what I focus on most of all is let your starting point to de-stressing be mental. How can I learn to rest my mind, eliminate the traffic, take a detour for a minute? We know life is going to continue going, but how can I take a mental detour for a moment and just get my mind to settle itself down? And then after that, really, again, those neurotransmitters, everything else starts to take care of itself.
I know for me, when I was teaching full time, and when you teach, you in essence speak for a living.
Yeah.
You're dealing with
That's a lot going on at once.
Right, exactly. You dealing with so many entry points and so many stressors from personalities and managing different tasks, speaking for a living. So it's a lot going on when you're teaching all day. So when I would get home, I would sometimes say, okay, babe, let me have 20 minutes just to shut up.
Especially
Let me
for the
just to be quiet.
Right.
Yeah, because we're not talkers anyway, right?
Right.
Let me, or I might take the long way home on purpose with no music.
Yeah.
Just so I could be quiet, so that I could be fresh.
Yeah.
And attentive and ready for especially when we first got married, because when you first get married, you're all about each other. I mean, we're all about each other anyway.
I got it.
You don't
I
have
get you.
the kids and all
Right.
that. This is before all of that. And
You starting from scratch.
Exactly.
Right.
And so you want the person that you're with, that you've pledged your life to get all of you. And so I figured that out actually by talking to a friend of mine. He said that's what he did, and I was like, yo, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And I said that, I gave that long story it's very, very critical, I think, that we have the right people in our lives to support us whatever journey we're on.
Whatever phase of life.
Yeah. Whatever cycle that we're deficient in, they're able to support you as you try to strengthen that cycle.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I just want to give a personal shout out to my boy, two good friends of mine, Brandon Montgomery and Stephen Gerard Payne. Man, those guys are guys.
The middle name.
I had to do it.
Not to be confused with any other Stephen
Yeah,
Payne.
but Stephen Gerard Payne. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Right,
Stephen
let's not
Gerard
get it
Payne
twisted.
Senior. Let me do it like that.
Okay. Not to be confused with anyone else out there.
Absolutely. And Brendan Aloysius Montgomery. I don't know if that's his middle name or not. I just always say that. But those guys, and James Michael Greathouse the Force, those guys are always guys who have been those kind of help me. Hey, bro, what's wrong? You all right?
That's a blessing.
You seem a little different.
Yeah.
Like, hold on, homie. I didn't like that. Or you know what I'm saying? That accountability. And for Kaylin, I need that because I'm always going.
Right.
I might not realize I'm doing something.
That's right.
Of course, my wife does it.
Yeah.
And she checks me and she gets me in order. But unfortunately, it's different when a friend does it. It is what it is, especially for guys.
I feel like, I think it's the same for women as well. It's like a light bulb moment. It's kind of like, okay, when you say it, I know you're saying it from a different place.
Right.
Because you're not necessarily with me all the time.
And there's no emotional connection right there.
To it. So and I was sitting there thinking about, your list of persons that help out. But I think for women, especially like those who are introverted, we don't necessarily pour or share like as freely, right?
As we extroverts would.
So we have to take that into consideration too. So for those who are on the introverted side, make sure you find someone that you feel comfortable with, even if it's someone you don't know. seek someone that you can actually kind of pour and kind of share, because there are people out there that are paid to listen, right?
There you go.
So
they're
paid and trained to just listen and pour that out to you, because we really want to have a more healthy society.
Sure.
A lot of the issues I believe we're seeing in our society is going from unchecked things that have never been addressed. I mean, even narcissistic behavior, unchecked behaviors. You know what I mean? We see it in politics. We see it in the local government. We see it in in the education system. The things that are failing all around us. Business, entrepreneur. Like, we see it all around us, how we live our society. But a lot of it's because we have not dealt with really rudimentary things that had we had kind of addressed it early on, it might not be where it is right now, and or it might not be even in existence. So I mean, personally, from a personal perspective, I think it's very healthy to definitely go and seek counsel.
Absolutely.
I think it's very healthy to make sure that you have some form of an outlet that doesn't mind you dumping. Right. There are places to dump.
Yes.
And you figure out where they are, the healthy places to dump, and dump there. Okay. Because every place is not supposed to be like what is it called? What is it? Where they call the trash? Where is the
landfill?
The landfill. Yeah. Right. Everything is not a landfill, but there are places that are a landfill.
Right.
And you need to
sometimes
use
you need a landfill. Sometimes you need a recycling center.
Come on, recycle.
Right, there you go.
Come on. Know your locations and use them appropriately.
That's a word.
Listen.
It's a word.
It's a word. It's a word. Now, before, so when me thinking about that, I was thinking about one story I wanted to get in from the news. I mean, we can get in if we can squeeze in here. Wendy Williams, right?
Yeah.
So it would made news. I mean, it's been going on for a long time now. If anyone's been following her, I don't watch the Wendy Williams show. I've known about Wendy Williams. She's been around for a long time. Since I was a teenager, I know she stayed in the news because I have family in New York, so she worked at the radio station. She transitioned from radio to talk show. She's had a long, very public history of some of the issues she's had. At one time, she was addicted to drugs. She's been married to the same person for over 20 years. Yeah. Now their marriage is coming to an end. She finally filed for divorce after years of accusations of cheating. Right. What's interesting
that wound up being true.
Well, what's true because he's been with the same mistress for over a decade, right? Which is a whole nother thing. And she's made her career. Made her career off of knowing everyone else's business.
Everybody else's
and
business.
And it's so interesting. I mean, even to the pain of people. I remember when years ago when Method Man's wife was going through cancer treatments and things like that, and she put that on blast, and he was like, "Hey, you can talk about me all day, but she's off limits."
Right, because nobody in our family even knew.
There's things like that. Like
so they got broken on national television,
things
radio.
like that. I mean, it's things like that. I mean, she's been at the people have gone after her. Yeah. And so she even said that she would only leave her husband under certain circumstances, and she went on record saying she would only leave him if he had a baby. Currently the woman that he has been with has had a baby. Yeah. She said we could talk about my relationship when the ring is off, so she finally took her ring off. And the women on The View actually were talking about, hey, they pretty much said her husband wasn't any good. And as a journalistic, we stand by you, Wendy. We're here for you. They pretty much said that he was no good. Now that's what it is. I feel like holistically. Listen, we go circle back to this. She's been dealing with a lot of stuff. Yes. She has, they're saying because of all this, she's been living in a sober house in Queens. Not in her beautiful mansion in New Jersey, because she's trying to avoid the drugs, and the drinking and the pills or whatever that looks like. She's relapsing into whatever her thing was. Right. The people that work with on the show are concerned about her because they, a lot of things that have come on and been triggered by these secret addictions or secret issues she's had. It's problematic because her husband is an executive producer on the show, so he's had credit for that. He said on record that the reason why he hadn't left her is because she's pretty much how they're living. Him and the mistress are living. And it's
that's deep.
As a woman,
that's deep.
with her being who she is and how far she's come and her rise to where she is right now, because she was always popular because of what she talked about.
Right.
It makes you wonder what was going on in your life that you felt like you couldn't have left a long time ago when you knew this was going on.
And very defensive.
About it, but will attack everyone else's situation. But I want to talk about how do we get to a place where we're not comfortable enough to walk away from unhealthy situation to preserve a healthy cycle. You know what I mean? Like you allow yourself to start crumbling in all these other areas of your life before you decide to get up. Now I'm not no knock with her because she is like most people. We hold on as long as we can, praying for change, hoping that people won't find out, wishing that it would change immediately. Praying that the scandal will touch our home, hoping that the blood will let it pass over. You know, let's talk about. I mean, like I and again, it's interesting because I was telling my husband, I said, it's Wendy Williams. I said it would seem like, and it's always that the person that seems to have the toughest skin, seems to actually be the person that's dealing with the most.
And I've heard actually that in real life, outside of her media personality, that she's a very nice.
I believe she would be.
Very easygoing, chill kind of personality. But of course,
that's what pays her.
Yeah,
and that's what always has paid her.
And at some point, you're gonna implode.
At some point, you're gonna implode because you are, like you said, the receptor. We talked about the receptor. Like you're taking in all this trash, you're throwing out all this trash, and I don't necessarily know if she. At some point, you start convincing yourself that what you're doing is okay. Because I'm here as an informant. People know what I'm saying. They know what to expect from me. They can't truly
that expectation of that.
Yeah, that they can't truly think that I really am that hardcore. But they're paying me for this, so I have to keep this going. Now it's coming to her doorstep, wrapped with a bow, and it's got to be difficult. I wonder what her method is going to be to to actually balance all of this,
because it's an immunity thing. It's just like certain diseases. Let's look at autoimmune disease.
Yes.
Autoimmune disease, when the immune system is attacking itself in hopes to try to help the immune system. It's actually doing more harm. So we do the same thing in life. Her immune system of tolerance has built up so high all of these years, and to where she has developed a tolerance of going through this mental and emotional abuse, of dealing with the rumors, of defending what's going on in her home. Now it gets to the point to where the dysfunction is in overdrive. And everything is starting to spill out and bleed over. Now, like you said, she's in a sober house. News has already been circulating, regarding the rumors and what's going on in her marriage as it is. Now we're seeing from her directly. So her immune system is completely inflamed. Her life is completely inflamed. And it's going to be very interesting to see, number one, social wellness, who's surrounding her, her spirit, what her spiritual center and belief is, and how she's going to recover and what process she's going to. I would hope to see her finally go off the radar, because these are serious issues for resting. It's necessary. She's dealt with health issues. She's on the verge of several breakdowns and relapsing, and then your covenant is about. It's already been shattered and exposed, but it's about to officially come to an end. She's got to really take some time.
We're hoping. Well, my hope is, like you said, that she takes time for rest. I know maybe a couple of months ago that there was a situation where she was out of the office for a while, and Nick Cannon stepped in for her. And there were some conversations that the network was talking about having Nick Cannon stay on for a little bit while, and then all of a sudden she reemerged. You can't be, and I don't know how true that was, but the thought I had though, because again I couldn't fact check that, but the thought I had was you have to be secure in who you are as a brand, and be concerned about your wellness overall, and not be so concerned about someone taking your spot. I think it was critical for her at that time to take the rest.
I agree.
She probably could have done a lot of this undercover if she would have just took some time off, maybe took a sabbatical. But now, again, this is all surfacing, and it's unfortunate because it's happening in front of people in a way that I don't think she ever could anticipate, because she was very careful to, even no matter how bad things got, she kept it going. She
Right.
made sure he was present around her to
Right.
hold her hand or
Right.
even walk by her to make it seem
That's
like
right.
everything was A-okay.
That's right.
So I think there's a lesson in that for all of us. We need to take some time on that.
Yeah. So I
That's
mean,
good. That's
the
good.
lesson is you have to center yourself.
Yeah.
You have to do what you need to do, because how can you give yourself to others?
How can you
when,
pour empty?
Yeah, when you're empty.
Yeah.
When you're broken, when you can't be a shoulder to cry on or to lean on for somebody, and you can't uphold their weight.
Right.
You can't do anything like that, and so it's one of those things that it just needs to be done.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when we think about things that needs to be done, this portion of our show is sponsored by Lady Irie Natural Hair Care.
Natural hair care. I
That's
need
important.
to use them.
Have a
Look,
kinky,
look,
curly
look,
style
look.
in mind? Lady Irie Natural Hair Care has been a prime destination for catering to naturally kinky hair in Houston, Texas, and beyond for over 5 years. Clients come from all around the world to receive the ultimate experience for their natural hair care needs. Lady Irie Natural Hair Care has been featured on media outlets including Young Black Professionals Magazine, GMT Internet Radio, The Sphere, and more. Your unique vision can be brought to life complete with helpful tips for maintaining your hair. You walk into the salon with the warmest of greetings, complimentary refreshments, and a knowledgeable stylist that promotes total beauty from the inside out. Our goal is to unveil your kinks one curl at a time. Give the experts a call today at 832-265-3792 or book online at www.ladyirie.com. Again, the number is 832-265-3792 or book online at www.ladyirie.com. All right, now let's transition just real quickly. So we're, I'm not gonna. I wish Wendy well.
Yeah.
I wish
do
Wendy
too.
well,
Yeah,
and her
we do.
family.
I do too.
She has a son. They have a son together. I wish
Right.
them well. We want to see her the swiftest of. We want her to be well,
Right.
regardless of what you think about her as a person. She's still a person.
Exactly. She's still a person.
She's still a person.
human being.
Now, before we close out, I want to talk about this conversation we had earlier today, and it's.
Are you sure?
Well, let's let the people know what's going on in
Let's
the world.
do it. Yeah.
Okay, so in Texas, if you don't live in Texas, you need to look into this and make sure you're aware, because this is what we're dealing with in our nation, right? In Texas, there's a GOP Texas lawmaker who reintroduced a bill to allow death penalty for women who have abortions. Now, I know a lot of people, there's a lot of people that watch, a lot of people who are Christians. There are a lot of people, but we also have to remember that we don't live
That's crazy.
We don't live in a world that is wholly occupied by Christians.
Right.
And even though that the fabric of our country was supposed to be founded on Christian values and principles, even with that, we don't believe that death is the answer.
Right.
Okay. So this lawmaker, he's reintroducing it. Apparently, he introduced it at first in 2017.
Yeah.
He brought it back for reintroduction this year. It was pulled on 17 because there were some death threats, I think it was, and some other things. People were really upset about it.
And even recently, yeah.
And recently, the same thing. There was some threats. But the thing about this whole conversation is, and this is where I take issue with it. You're punishing a woman for a right to not have a child, and we don't even talk about how this came to be. There's so many factors, even health reasons why a woman may not be able to carry a child.
Right.
You know what I mean? We talk about, when I go see my physician, we talk about fetal health. We talk about, can you carry this baby healthily to term? We talk about, they do diagnostic genetic testing on unborn children to see what do they have a chance of life, a full life, all these things. And when we initially introduced this conversation, there were a lot of people who were very upset. Was like, well, if you're a Christian, there's no conversation about it. I was like, let's be clear. This is not a conversation about religion.
Right.
This is not what the conversation about it. This is a conversation
difference.
about life and death as it relates to killing somebody
Right.
for having abortion without reason, just because
Right.
they did it. And the reason in the actual quote was, we're trying to make women more responsible for the actions and the decision. And I said, my thought was, how did we get here as a nation? Because it takes two people, consensual or not, to have sex. And we cannot always, it seems like it's coming back to a very archaic stage where women
Right.
are being punished, stoned to death, and things like that for the decisions that they don't really have control over completely. And I also brought to the table that yes, we want women to be responsible, and many of us are responsible. But how much more birth control? How much more these things that you want us to pump into our bodies that are poisonous and things like that? And there are also birth control options for men as well that men are not being asked to use. That the extent of it has only been condoms and maybe a vasectomy. So we have to have a more balanced and fair society when it comes to this conversation, because it really is disheartening to think that someone would think that this would fix an issue of abortion in America when we're not, the numbers of abortion aren't skyrocketing. Actually, they've actually went down.
Exactly. And who's at the helm of that? I'm thinking, are these conservative
GOP
males?
leaders? Of course.
Yeah.
Said GOP.
Representative
Enough
Lundquist.
said. Case closed.
Something Quist. I think it's Lundquist.
Well, but either whoever he is, I want everyone to be aware. And I can't tell you what to do and where you're located, but I do want you to know that the people that are making these bills are people ideally that we have voted into office. And you need to be aware of what they stand for. You need to be present to vote. And you need to know what values they align with when it comes to their party.
So this is the thing about that. You're 100% correct. You are 100% correct that we have to be aware of who we're voting in. But
you actually vote.
That too. You do have to vote, but his constituents want him to vote like that.
No, I get that.
So no. So what I'm getting at is that there's a larger conversation in the type of persons that are in this world that actually believe this kind of, what I'm saying? Legitimately believe a woman should be held criminally responsible for an abortion.
Exactly. It's
very
troubling.
As if it's a capital crime.
Right.
It's crazy.
And especially when medical science is still undetermined, and like you said, in all 50 states, it's not clear across the board when is viability established, because it's not established in week 1, 2, or 3. We know that. I mean, I know that when I go in there, they're not telling me that my baby's breathing. They're telling me that we're still waiting for lungs to develop. We're still waiting for a heart. You can't wait. You have to wait till 5 or 6 to see if we can even catch a bleep of a heartbeat. And so to know that what they're suggesting is really troubling to me, because again, you're only punishing a woman for these actions. So that, I want to just leave that as and
we're gonna have to dig into that. We might need to dedicate an entire show to that.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many entry points. Into that. But gosh, the time goes by so quickly when you're having a phenomenal and a fantastic conversation.
I learned more than I thought I was going to learn.
Listen. Where my notes?
Where my notes? I need her to write me a
Dr.
script.
Moore. I need a recommendation.
I need a recommendation. I need to go and get into some steam and stretch.
Right. Facts. So, LaShanna, let everybody know how they can contact you if they want your services, if they want to, connect with you. Give them all that information.
Absolutely. Thank you for that opportunity. I am on all social media handles as LaShanna Leonard Moore. Pretty simple, with the exception of Twitter. Twitter wouldn't allow all those characters. LaShanna L. Moore. Okay. And then my website where you can find everything. Schedule yourself for a consultation or read some of the testimonials about things we talked about today at www.lashannaleonard.com. Haven't had a chance to insert that more yet.
Yeah.
But LaShannaLeonard.com. We want more.
Right. We got to get that more there, so hyperlink it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Right.
Hyperlink it so it doesn't matter what they type in. Gotta represent it. Absolutely. Well, I'm Kalen Laws, a.k.a. Senior Wapo. Go to Twitter, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, and follow me at SENORGUAPO713. Holla at your boy.
And I'm Kira Laws, and you can follow me on, Instagram at the Modern Day Cindy, and that's Cindy with 2 I's, no Y's, CINDI. And I am looking forward to seeing you all again soon.
We'll see you soon.